it's still one of the best things that's ever happened, but yet it was something that didn't happen overnight. It looks like it did to people from the outside, but it really didn't. It was a company called User Testing, and it's a SaaS. It's a SaaS platform in the user experience space. Well, at the time, I was CFO of Reputation.com, which is also a SaaS platform, and both companies had that trajectory of they hit the 50 million in ARR, then hit the 100 million in ARR. Now you're kind of unicorn status in the SaaS world. Both were at an inflection point of, do we go public? What is the next step? How do you get from 100 million to 200 million? So that was my day job, and quite frankly, it was such a win-win to have that be the first board, because that was my board job. So there was a lot of similarities, but it was one of those things where as good of a match I think it was for a first board for me. How I got the board seat wasn't because there was somebody at that other company who was like, that CFO over there is great, and we're going to tap her on the head. It just doesn't work that way. You literally do have to tell a million people and a million people more. And so for me, Diligent had a board database portal, if you will. And this was kind of right after Rodney Floyd, and they had decided to expand that database to bring in board qualified people who just weren't in their network. And they asked folks who were in their network to nominate people. Okay. And so I got nominated to be in that platform. Once I got in the platform, I then went into it and just did a query to see, do any of the open board recs they have in there match my background? User testing came up. So I thought, okay, I'll just send them my board bio. But Lisa, to be able to just send the board bio out there ready, I had done a board prep program with this woman named Julie Castro Abrams and How Women Lead years ago. And then I had been working on my board bio through her program for many years. I'd been working on board interviews for many years. So nobody saw the years of all that had happened. They just saw I went into this portal, sent the bio, and then I got an interview. But I had to be ready, right? For all that.
Prepared.
You have to be prepared. And then once I got in the portal, interestingly, my bio goes to the company. Well, it turns out someone at the company is somebody that knew me through another women's organization. So then there's another just a connection point. That was like, oh, I know this woman. We should interview her.
Right.
So then I go to interview, and I'm doing the interviews, and it turns out one of the board members and our kids go to school together in the same class.
Connection.
So you said, you got all these networks came together. And so obviously I was qualified, but I just had to be put in as a qualified financial expert, and they were looking for an audit person. Okay. But I had to be, all the networks had to come together to make all of that that work.
You said something really important, because people often ask, how do I get on a board? It's a couple of things I'm going to repeat, and then I need you to articulate a little bit further. One of them is that you have to be prepared, and the other one you said is all of the things that you have been doing before you got your board seat came together in the right moment for the right opportunity. And then thirdly, that it just doesn't show up. So I want you to kind of summarize that for me, because people that are on right now are listening to your career and really aspire to become or even have one board seat, right? Because I think, as you and I know, you get one, you get another one. It's easy. You got to get that first one first, right? So what differentiates a person from being ready and not being ready in your mind?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think that you're ready when you feel prepared and you feel like you're going to be able to, to share whatever is your secret sauce, your superpower. When you feel ready to be able to do that, and you have the time and the ability to do it, because that's the other thing people don't understand about boards. It is a significant time commitment. They think, oh, you're just going to be on these boards. You're just I've had so many people say, you're only going to meet 4 times a year. I'm like, that does not take into account all the off-cycle committee meetings, the the going to the customer conferences, because you got to understand your business.
Yes.
So going to spend a week in Orlando at the customer conference and really getting to understand the business, going to, you know, an NACD award for one of your board members because you have a relationship with him or her. It doesn't take into account any of that, nor does it take into account the fact that, you know, we get in some of these boards thousands of pages of prep material before the board meeting that you are expected to have read and actually digested and be ready to actually discuss. And so I think on average, there's been several studies out there. On average, you're looking at, you know, 250 to 300 hours a year. But some boards, depending on what's going on, like when I was on user testing's board, it wound up being more than that because we took that company public. So anytime you take a company public, it's more than that in terms of hours. And then we eventually wound up taking that company private and sold it to a private equity firm. And so anytime you do an M&A deal, it's more hours. And so again, it is a significant time commitment. And I think you have to be prepared to actually dive in and do that. And I see a lot of people woefully underestimating that part of it.
The time commitment. Yes. They think it's glamorous. It's the thing to be. Right. Say they have the title and all those things. But along with that is work. And I will say to the people that just joined us, welcome. And my apology, we had some technology challenges this morning to our start, even on my end, Shannon, where I thought we were on streaming. We weren't. It just connected about 15 minutes ago, but we're good. And for those that missed Shannon's background today, we're talking to Shannon, a powerhouse attorney, Shannon Nash, business executive and board director, currently serving on the boards of Lazy Dog Restaurant, Netscount, and SOFI. She's also a film producer. And so with all of that, you have a lot to offer our audience. And one of them is representation in the boardroom. What shifts have you seen given the current environment of challenge and what can I say, change that has really had many of us step back to step forward? What shifts are you seeing in boardroom inclusions, and where do we still need to go in that arena?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, over, let's say, the last 5 years, we've seen some progress. Certainly, we've seen some progress. But, you know, obviously, especially in the new environment, progress is definitely slowing in terms of what you're talking about, representation in the boardroom. You know, some recent studies have shown that women hold approximately like a third, if you will, of all the board seats in the S&P 500, which is definitely up from where it was in 2020, which was under a third, I think roughly around 27, 26%. But what you still see is even with, you know, those gains, women still only occupy roughly 10 to 11% of all the leadership positions. And that's super important. And that one of the things I learned on my first board is like, who is your lead independent director? Because that person typically leads also the nominations and governance committee, which is the committee that actually is charged with, you know, when there are opportunities to have new board members, they go out and they find the new board members. Right. And so I think it is really important to have diverse viewpoints on those type of committees, because they're going to have different networks, and they're going to bring those different networks to at least be vetted in terms of, you know, here we will pull from all these networks, because ultimately you want the best people of any stripe. Nobody cares. Exactly. Like, you shouldn't care about any of those things. You want the best people at what they do. And you can find the best people in different networks. They don't all exist in one network. And so, you know, I think that, you know, that still needs to happen more of the leadership positions. Certainly we've slowed down in general in terms of just the number of board appointments of women and people of color is definitely dropped. You know, we've gone from the new appointments being roughly in the high teens, 17, 18%, to now 14%, if you will, for women. And then for people of color, those new appointments were at a high of about 34, 35% a couple years ago. And now we're at like about 25%. So you definitely see some trends there. But that being said, we cannot be discouraged. Right. We still have to continue to, you know, at the end of the day, it has been proven and proven again that diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams. in terms of shareholder value.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, this is about shareholder value.
Exactly.
So we have to continue to do what's best for these companies, and that is to have representation.
Well, I mean, we already know it's about shareholder value. I'm looking at one of the major retail stores that is going through that right now with foot traffic being limited based upon some things that they did with scaling back and decelerating DEI. And certainly you can see that the shareholder value has gone down. Okay. And so at the end of the day, if companies don't get that, then they weren't intending to get it in the first place, right? And so I appreciate you sharing all about your board. Your dad, bringing you to his law classes, and you're hailing from Saginaw, Michigan, over there in the Midwest to landing several board seats. It's commendable. Why don't we now talk about your film production? I want to see this film, and tell me more about it, Shannon.
Yeah, so we did a film called OnBoard, and it tells the story of the first African-American woman on a board. Her name is Patricia Roberts Harris. And let me take a little bit of a back step here. So Merlene Santil and Robin Washington founded an organization called Black Women on Boards.
Yes.
It started with roughly 18 women on a Zoom call. They invited their friends, and then they brought this woman named Elizabeth Patterson, who was with a VC firm who had portfolio companies that were looking for board members. And it was really their attempt to help widen the network of board qualified women, because both of them were what's called overboarded. They're on a lot of boards and couldn't be on more boards, but they knew these qualified women who just weren't getting the calls and the opportunities. And so I watched how that grew. I was one of the 18 women. I actually got on my first board after that Zoom meeting, and it turned into an actual organization. And I kind of went to Merlene and said, how are you going to scale this? Because this is great, but like, how are you going to scale this? And she had a lot of ideas. And I said, hey, I've got a kooky idea, and I've made films before. Should make a film. That's a great way to get the message out.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, she was open to it. And so I brought in an award-winning filmmaker by the name of Deborah Riley Draper, who had just gotten off of doing the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated documentary, and she's a soror as well, and a great friend. And she was interested in directing it. And kind of then the other kind of checkpoint that really let me know that this film should be made is I have a mentor by the name of Barry Williams. A lot of people know him. He's been on a lot of boards. And my husband and I were out to dinner with him and his wife. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about making this movie. We want to talk about Black women on boards and just that movement, that organization. And we want to feature the first Black woman who got on a board in the 70s, which I'd never even heard of. And it sounds amazing. And I named this person. And he said, where'd you get that name from? And I said, well, she wrote a book. It's on Google. He's like, that's unfortunate that Google is wrong. And I was like, Google is wrong? He's like, the first Black woman is Patricia Roberts Harris. And he's like, I know, because I was alive then. I remember it. And lo and behold, I Googled her. And that's where being the lawyer and the researcher really came into, because I did a ton of research. I Googled this woman, and I Googled Patricia. And lo and behold, Patricia really was the first. She just hadn't written a book and all these things. And the woman who was being credited, what she said in her book is she was one of the first. And then that, you know how Google works, and then it then turned into the first.
Okay.
Right.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So how can we see this film?
So it's on Vimeo right now. You could go onto Vimeo and type OnBoard, and it is available to stream. We took it to the Tribeca Film Festival and premiered during that festival. And we've gone around the country with it. And so now it's available to the next.
We got to get it back. We got to get it back in the movement. Okay. So I'm going to find it. And make sure that the Career Master Women Leadership Network gets a chance to see it. I think it's very important. And people don't know what they don't know. So I'm glad that you're exposing us to the fact that this film is available. And I want to thank Gloria and Andrea for commenting here on the chat. So now I want to talk about quickly is making connections. You mentioned several connections, you know, how you got your mentor, and then you talked about the film connection. And was there someone that opened the door that just stands out for you in terms of your success?
Well, I think a lot of people open the door. I mean, I think through a career, you know, many people have to open the door. And I've spoken very publicly about earlier in my career. It was a man by the name of Larry Bailey, who was I think he was the first Black CPA tax partner of a major at the time 10 firm, public accounting firm in the 70s. And I
Yeah.
always tell my mentees this: I never worked for this man. I wound up actually planning as young in my career through one of these associations. I planned the panel. Like, I was just active, and I asked him to be on the panel, and we hit it off.
Wow.
And then he became a mentor for me and opened a ton of doors and a ton of opportunities, to the point where he's that type of mentor where I don't take on new jobs or roles or anything without I call him on the phone and say, right, one of those people. So mentors and people open the door come in all stripes and fashions. And so, you know, I feel very fortunate that, like, he not only did he open doors for me, he wound up actually writing a recommendation letter for my he was also on the board of Wharton. He had gone to Wharton Business School also really early on in the 70s. This guy's a trailblazer. Yeah. And he wrote a recommendation letter for him. I got to know my husband, and then became my husband's mentor. Wrote a recommendation letter for him.
I've had one of those. I've actually had one of those. I understand. I had a gentleman at General Motors who was my mentor, and he asked to have dinner with me and my husband. And before you know it, he helped us both, you know. And so you never know where you're going to get your help from. I'm going to end with asking you to talk to your younger self. Is there something that you would tell your younger self that would help point you in the direction that you are going?
Yeah, well, I would definitely tell her to don't give up on her dreams and keep dreaming, because I just remember being a child of the 80s, if you will. I remember recently in the last couple of years through How Women Lead, and shout out to my friend Lori Castillo Martinez, we brought together a group of women to go to a Duran Duran concert.
Okay.
And I remember, and we had fun. It was a Chase Center, and we were in the suite, all the things. And I remember Lisa just having tears, because I could remember being a teenager in my room. MTV and BET were really, starting out. I had a Duran Duran poster on my wall. And I remember they did a video. It could have been Rio, the Reflex, one of those videos, but they were traveling like around the world. And I remember just saying, one day I'm going to travel. One day I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to be something. And then I remember just like as a teenager, just being like, or maybe not.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. And so I actually had tears in my eyes. I was like, oh my God, that girl did it. Yes. She did it. And like now she's like listening to Duran Duran, like super close to the stage. And like, she did it. She wanted to, she wasn't sure if she could, and she did it.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, you are I got to tell you, firepower. I just, not only just from your career, just having met you, Shannon, I just say this. First of all, congratulations on being a career master honoree this year. Certainly with changes, we did not get to see you real time, but this has been wonderful in this context. And I'm sure we're going to see each other again as we continue to go on our paths. But I just want to say the energy that you bring to who you are has made a lot, I'm sure, myself and others lean in. And so that's a personality, that's a brand authority that you have. So keep doing that. I think it matters, because then people can then get a chance to get access to you to say, hey, what did you do? How did you do it? And you'll offer them the advice that you're giving us today. And so what I'm going to do is give you some rapid fire questions. We answer them, and then we'll be gone. All right. So best career advice you ever received?
Oh, definitely. To make sure that you, like Larry said, return your phone calls.
Yes.
Like, you never know. He's like, return your phone calls.
All right. Book or podcast you would recommend to aspiring leaders?
Oh, I am obsessed right now with the Acquired podcast. They go deep into like, it started with like Hermes and like, but they go deep into and LVMH. They go deep into the history of all these like companies, Costco. You learn so much about not only how the company started, but just like what makes them tick. I am super like obsessed with Acquired podcast.
Oh my gosh, I have to do that. And your personal mantra or motto?
Oh, my personal motto. Okay, so I'm a huge. I'm a person that quotes music all the time. I kind of think in like music, like lyrics is really ridiculous. I'm in the Biggie and Tupac wars. I'm a Tupac fan, so I always it's Tupac and keep your head up.
All right, and then what's your coffee order?
Oh, every day, tall chai tea latte, Starbucks. Gotta be Starbucks.
So I'm a Starbucks girl too. All right. So we got that. But first of all, thank you for your time today. I thank you for the flexibility that both you and I had on this internet deal. But hey, you made it work. I can't wait to see you real time again. And I want to thank the audience for jumping on today. But more importantly, this is a show that allows the opportunity to play back. So people from Facebook as well as YouTube and LinkedIn have an opportunity to hear again. So if they wanted to get in touch with you, it's just Shannon Nash on LinkedIn. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. And then Lisa, I want to share with you that I'm working on a podcast myself that'll come out later this year. Yes. That'll be leadership lessons and some of the amazing people that I've met. And so I hope you will be on my podcast because of what you're doing is amazing. And I'm working on a book, and it's also a book that combines both corporate and creatives. I think there's lots of people who are corporate and creatives like me. And so it's a book that really delves into what that means. And so those two things are big projects for me.
Congratulations. I know what that means. I mean, you're continuing to move forward with the path. I'm an author as well. My third book was released during the pandemic. And actually, the person that wrote the foreword just left during this last season. But again, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, let me know. And all of us are waiting for that book so we can be the first to pre-order, and then that podcast so I can get on Spotify or wherever it is. And thanks for all you do. And I appreciate you being with us today. And have a great day.
Likewise. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome. I love her energy. I tell you what, Shannon has the energy that just encapsulates all that you need to just spark that energy to get up and moving. And so I thank her for being on with us today. And for all of those that were with us today, Cerise and Andrea, Gloria, others, thank you for your comments about Shannon and how she inspires you and on your journey. I know too that you will keep up with her so that you can make sure you be the first to get that podcast in the book. And in terms of Career Master, as I mentioned, we're headed to New York for the Career Master Brunch with the Masters, where it's by invitation only event. And then that's on May 1st. With Pat Healy, who is the author of Meet 100 People. We will also be in Detroit on May the 20th with Ariva Martin, who is the award-winning civil rights attorney, autism advocate, and CNN host, and so many other things with what she does. And then on May the 6th, we'll be in Charlotte with April Simpkins, who is the founder of the Chesley Foundation, as well as CHRO for Quesco. We have women who are in the marketplace doing it. And I thank you for joining us today. Give this a link to play back with your friends and let them know that they have an opportunity to join us. And don't forget that the Career Master Women's Leadership Magazine is out right now for the spring with Talia Fox on the cover, who is the CEO of Kusai Training Global. And you can pick that up at careermaster.com and or on www.drlisawicker.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.